I often hear people talk about the story of the lost 116 pages as an example of the idea that if you ask God for something and He says no, but you keep asking, He will eventually say yes, just so you will learn from the bad experience how to take no for an answer. The expression, well, God gave the 116 pages to Martin Harris, is used as an expression of this concept. The way this story is told has always bothered me because it didn't seem to fit with the scriptural accounts of how God works. The story is usually told like this. Martin asks if he can take the 116 translated pages of the Book of Mormon back to his wife and family in Palmyra so that he can show them he's not wasting his time and money. He asks Joseph to ask God for permission and is told no 2 different times. Martin pressures Joseph to ask a 3rd time, and this time the answer from the Lord is yes, with conditions. Martin leaves with the pages and they are eventually stolen. When Joseph finds out, he laments greatly, taking responsibility for the loss and being held accountable for it by God. Losing the ability to translate, and the Urim and Thummim and the plates are taken from him for a time, until he can repent. Here are 4 doctrinal questions this telling of the account seems to create. Number 1, does repeatedly asking God after you've been told no get God to finally say yes? Number 2, will the yes God gives you mean, yes, this is the right decision, when the real meaning is, this is still the wrong decision, but you want it so much, I will endorse your bad decision? 3, why didn't God just say no a 3rd time and prevent the entire problem? Joseph had accepted the previous no answers, and he probably would have again. 4, why was Joseph held responsible for the loss of the pages when it was all Martin's fault? Aren't we only punished for our own sins? These questions led me to believe there was something missing from the story. After years of searching, I finally found the answer, and it resolves all of the above questions. Most of the details of the story come from History of Joseph Smith by his mother, Lucy Mack Smith. The first edition of this book was created from interviews with her and then edited for publication. New, unabridged, and revised versions were created that went back to the original interview notes and added details previously left out. It was in one of these new editions that I found the key to unlocking the mystery. The original edition described the 3rd time Joseph asked for permission this way. But the last answer was not like the 2 former ones. In this, the Lord permitted Martin Harris to take the manuscript home with him, on condition that he would exhibit it to none, save 5 individuals. The unabridged account includes these striking additional details. But the last answer was not like the 2 former ones. In this, the Lord permitted Martin Harris to take the manuscript home with him, on the condition that my son, Joseph Smith, was responsible for its safety. This my son was willing to do, as he could not conceive it possible for so kind a friend to betray the trust reposed in him. This fuller quote shows that Joseph is being given the responsibility and accountability instead of Martin Harris, which is very different. God basically says, look, Joseph, I will let you give Martin the pages if you accept all the responsibility for what happens. This is a bad idea, but if you trust Martin more than you trust me, you can give him the pages. I'm not giving Martin the pages, you are, and you will be held accountable for whatever happens as if you did it. God didn't say yes to the original question, which was, can Martin take the pages and be responsible for whatever happens? God says yes to a different question he posed back to Joseph, whether Joseph is willing to bear all the responsibility for whatever happens. God knew Martin would break his oath. Joseph didn't know this, and trusted Martin in spite of God's warnings. Why? Martin is 20 years older than Joseph. He's a highly respected, wealthy farmer whose word and integrity was viewed as above reproach in the community. He had already proven himself by helping Emma and Joseph to pay off their debts in Palmyra so they could move to Harmony. He has been financially supporting them so Joseph can translate. Martin has donated his time to work as a scribe and also has agreed to finance the publication of the Book of Mormon. Joseph is also under tremendous pressure. Emma is about to give birth. He doesn't really have any source of income and hasn't been farming much because of his work on the translation. Emma's parents, who live nearby and opposed to their marriage, are watching unapprovingly. With all these pressures pushing down on Joseph, I believe he feels that pleasing his primary financial supporter is paramount. So he takes the risk and gives Martin the pages. Additional details show that God was displeased with Joseph for trusting Martin even before the pages were lost. Joseph wrote that God told him that it was not safe to let the writing go out of his possession. Moroni came and took the Urim and Thummim away right after Martin left with the pages. And in Doctrine and Covenants 10:2, it confirms that Joseph lost his gift to translate at this same time. This was God's way of saying, this is such a bad idea that you're not going to be allowed to translate until this is over. These are all red flags. The additional detail of the account resolves the 4 doctrinal questions that the brief account raises. 1. God doesn't give you a yes to a question he has said no to if you ask enough. 2. God won't endorse a bad decision by saying yes when he still really means no. 3. God didn't ever say yes to the original question, so God didn't fail to prevent the problem by simply saying no a 3rd time. 4. Joseph was not held responsible for something he didn't do. He fully knew he would be responsible for whatever happened, and he was being held responsible for trusting Martin when God warned him against it. Joseph later says that the angel Moroni appeared to him and said that I had sinned in delivering the manuscript into the hands of a wicked man, and as I had ventured to become responsible for this man's faithfulness, I would of necessity suffer the consequences of his indiscretion. There are so many lessons in this story, but they all make more sense now that we know that God didn't really ever say yes to Martin's request to take the pages. We don't have to teach or pass on the incorrect understanding of this story and the host of doctrinal problems it creates now that we understand what really happened. Now you understand. Pass it on. Thanks for watching.